Faster than a fraudulent performance measure, stronger than a misplaced decimal point, able to leap complex compliance requirements at a single bound. It's Super Auditor! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Auditors Save the World, one audit project at a time, where we bring you thrilling tales of daring audits and brave financial reviews. Here, our heroes don't wear capes, but they do wield the power of empirical evidence. Brought to you by the pros at Yellowbook-CPE. In each episode, we interview those legendary auditors who have truly rescued the day. Stay tuned, listeners, because this is one story you won't want to miss. And folks, don't forget to subscribe to our show in your podcast app of choice. And now, here's your host, Lita Hart-Fanta.
Today's hero, the fabulous Jay. City Auditor by title, Justice Catalyst by destiny. What began as a standard audit of a city department's purchases led to a discovery that no one expected. A quirky expenditure by an elected sheriff. A sharp-eyed report, a council presentation, then kaboom! The press pounces, dubbing it the jail fail. But what the press termed a failure turned out to heal the community. State-level reforms followed. Families reconnected with loved ones behind bars. A community was changed. Only going to show that you never know where an audit will take you or the people you serve. Tune in, citizens, for another thrilling tale of courage, curiosity, and control.
As you also know, I was the chief audit executive and city auditor for the city of Chesapeake for almost 30 years. And we had a number of projects, projects that we worked on. Now, some of them were audits. Some of the more interesting ones were actually, you mentioned the Green Book and Yellowbook-CPE. Some of the more interesting ones were actually non-audit services ones. But I do have one project that was actually done as an audit, and it didn't start out well, but it had a very positive outcome.
Oh, great!
So,
how big a community is Chesapeake?
Chesapeake has about, I think they've crossed 260,000 people now.
Okay.
I'm not. We are one of the 100 largest, or I don't live there anymore, but yeah, we are one of the 100 largest cities in the country. I think we were 90th or something the last time, and Chesapeake is the second largest city in the Commonwealth of Virginia, right behind Virginia Beach. We're bigger than Norfolk, we're bigger than Richmond, we're bigger than Newport News. Those are the cities that...
Is that right?
Yeah, people have heard of those places. Nobody's ever heard of Chesapeake, but people have heard of those places. And we over the course of the 30 years that I was there, we went from being the fifth largest city behind Newport News, Norfolk, and Richmond to being the second largest. I remember our mayor was giving the mayor's State of the City address, and he opened the address by saying, "Welcome to the second largest city in the Commonwealth of Virginia." So
that's cool. That's very cool. So what was your audit that was such a success?
Okay, I've done a number of presentations on it. The presentations are called Jail Fail. It's Jail Fail, an unlikely success story. And the reason I say it's an unlikely success story is because while it's based on a situation where we built a jail where we didn't have the authority to build a jail, and we were told that we couldn't build the jail, and then we couldn't put inmates in the jail, and then after the audit and after after a whole bunch of hoops jumped through at both the local level and the state level, we finally got a functioning facility that was actually helpful to the community. And so,
who was telling you couldn't have a jail?
And now, a word from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Yellowbook-CPE, the heroes behind the jumbo bundle of self-study courses. With a 1-year subscription, you get access to over 180 hours of top-notch CPE content. Dive into thrilling tales of agile, IT auditing, fraud, and internal controls. All courses carry NASBA's quality seal, so you know they've got the superpower of trustworthiness. Just click the link in the description to sign up. And now, back to our story.
Who was telling you couldn't have a jail? Was it the state?
I'll get to that.
Oh, okay. All right, you'll get to that.
Here's how it started, okay? And this is a little different from what you and Drummond preach, but it's what we were doing in Chesapeake. We focused on departmental-wide audits. That's where we kind of look at a whole department, then kind of zero in on which areas within that department we want to look at.
All right.
In Chesapeake, we had a department called Facilities Management.
Okay.
And like a lot of cities, we have to build some of our own buildings to house the various operations and programs of the city. And what happened, and like a lot of cities, we were having problems with some of the buildings that we were building. Like I think just about every building that we built, the roof leaked.
No way.
And we were having all kinds of problems with cost overruns and things like that. And so we were going to audit. At the time, it was part of something called the General Services Department, and it was a division called Facilities Management within General Services. We were going to do an audit of that because, like I said, we were always having problems with the building. Well, the director of General Services knew we were starting the audit. He wasn't too crazy about it, and within a few days after we notified him that we were going to start the audit, he decided to retire.
Oh.
And so, yeah.
He wasn't putting up with that.
At the time, we had a relatively new city manager who wanted to get rid of that department anyway. And so the new city manager got rid of that department and placed it under the department of, got rid of that division and placed it under the auspices of the Public Works Department. Now, we weren't planning to audit Public Works for another couple of years, and so we waited those couple of years. But when we were going to audit Public Works, one of the first things we were going to do was audit this Facilities Management Department just to see what was going on. And so we started this Public Works audit, another big department within the city.
Humongous thing, yeah.
And started doing the audit. We interviewed, management. We, performed. We looked at accounts payable. We looked at contracts. And the biggest thing, and this was the thing that required the most effort, was we were looking at a specific project. There was we, like a number of cities back then, were having problems with jail overcrowding, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it was at the point where we were concerned that the Justice Department was going to come in and fine us, and their fines is like tens of thousands of dollars a day or something like that, or thousands of dollars a day, because we were so overcrowded.
Yeah.
And so what happened was our sheriff, who was an elected official, he went to a conference, just like we go to conferences, and he saw where they were building these temporary pod facilities that you could theoretically use as jails. And so he decided to, and so without getting the authorization from purchasing of the city or anything like that. He went out, he purchased one of these facilities.
All right.
Okay. And
That's
basically,
a go-getter.
yeah, and without bidding it out, without getting permission from the city, anything, he went down there and he had the city. Yeah, he had, our sheriff, that sheriff was actually a fairly interesting guy, but I won't get into that.
How much money was this? Like 200,000?
I'll get to that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
I'm coming. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so he purchased this and he wanted them to actually install it and build it. Now, the the facility itself cost about, and yeah, obviously facilities management, because they're on the facilities management would be responsible for putting it together and building it. Yeah, and so anyway, they I'm trying to remember what the original cost was, because I don't seem to have that in my notes.
Okay.
Yeah, the original cost was like about $6 million or something like that. And so
Oh.
that's cheap for a jail, obviously, but as you'll see in a minute, there were some things they left out.
Okay.
And so, we looked at all of this stuff, and what I was about to say before I got off on this tangent was one of the things we had to look at as part of this audit when we were looking at this particular facility was because it was having some problems. We had like 3 giant boxes. Our city attorney's office had printed them all out. We had these 3 giant boxes of emails, right? And there were literally thousands and thousands of emails in these boxes. And so one of the things, probably the primary thing we had to do as part of that audit, was go through these thousands and thousands and thousands of emails to figure out what was going on. And so we went through these thousands and thousands of emails, and there were 2 things that turned out to be problematic. The first one was consistent with all of our other building projects. It was having a cost overrun. In addition to what it costs us to actually buy the materials and the license for the facility, we actually had to have some things installed. And some of the things that should have been installed, that should have been part of the contract, weren't there, had not been included. And so we actually had to do change orders to get them into the contract. And some of the things that needed change orders were things that you would normally suspect would be in a jail. Like we had a $27,000 change order for fencing.
Okay.
You would think the jail would have a
You
fencing.
need those.
The biggest one, the more interesting one, though, was we spent almost $125,000 for a security system.
Oh gosh.
You would think the jail would have you would think a jail would have a security system,
Sure.
right? Well, this one didn't have one.
Sure. Jen, can I stop you for a minute?
Okay.
Okay. When you said he went to a conference and he found
Mhm.
out there are these temporary structures
Mhm.
that could
Be used as for jail facilities, yes.
I'm thinking yurts. Okay. I'm thinking large tents and yurts. And then, right, I'm thinking those portables that they have outside of schools that they put the
Right.
kids in that are really like big trailers, right?
Yeah.
But you're saying a $6 million facility. He just went out,
Mhm.
pulled the trigger, bought it.
Mhm.
So obviously this was masonry.
No, you're actually closer with the
yurt?
when you were talking about the yurts.
Okay.
Yeah, they were these giant. They called them pods, right? Now
Okay.
they're basically made of vinyl. Okay.
Oh gosh.
And they're each about the size. They're about the size of a one. Well, they're a bit larger than. if I had to guess the square footage, I would guess they're all about, maybe 10,000 square feet
All
on
right.
the inside.
Okay.
So they're good size, but they're made of vinyl, and so they're easy to construct.
Okay. Thanks. Now I'm with you.
Okay. But what they're made of actually turned out to be a bit of a challenge, at least initially, because as you will discover, there are certain regulatory folks who don't necessarily like jails made of vinyl
You think
and so,
that whole slipping the nail file into the jail wouldn't
yeah,
work on a vinyl wall?
yeah.
Okay, okay, because I can get out of a yurt. Even I can get out of a yurt
Yeah, well,
with a good knife. Right. Okay. Even a butter knife, I could probably get out of a
in
yurt.
theory, you could get out of this too.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyway, like I said, we had the issue with the cost overruns, we had the issue with the cost overruns. But the biggest issue, and that's kind of what we were just talking about to some degree, was if you're going to build a jail facility or have a jail facility in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it has to be approved by the state. Back
Ah.
then, the entity that had to approve it was the Board of Corrections. They've changed their name. I'm trying to see where I wrote their new name down, and it's like I think it's called the Corrections Oversight Committee now, or something like that. But don't hold me to that. But anyway, back then you had to get permission from the Board of Corrections if you were going to build any kind of a jail facility in the Commonwealth of Virginia at all.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was one of the people who worked with the sheriff's office had called up somebody on the board and spoken to them, and they said, "Oh yeah, that probably won't be a problem." And so they went ahead with this $6 million, 7 million. Well, by the time they finished, by the time we got it, it was over $7 million. They went ahead with this big project to build this thing in without getting permission from the Board of Corrections. And so they go through without getting anything besides that verbal okay. And so they go through the stuff, they get all of this thing there, get to the point where they're ready to put inmates in it. And so it's like, oh, we need to get permission from the board. Well, they said they'd probably do it. So let's just send up a formal request to get permission from the board. Well, guess what? Board said no.
Of course they did.
They didn't like a number of things, including what the things were made of.
Final.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah. And so they tried it a couple of different times, and yeah, you have to wait a year if you get turned down. They tried it a couple of different times with the Board of Corrections. The Board of Corrections turned it down each time, and then they said they'd go the political route. Our sheriff was an elected official, and so they decided to go to the Virginia General Assembly and try it that way. And the Virginia General Assembly turned them down not once but twice.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
and so basically they have these facilities, they have these pods, they got them almost all built out. They're supposed to put inmates in them. We're still having this overcrowding problem, and we can't use these buildings the way they're supposed to. Now, this is where we're coming in. This is where we're doing the audit. And so we're doing the audit. Darren, who was my deputy at the time, she's now the city auditor in Chesapeake. She's in charge of it. We have some other staff who are helping her out, going through those thousands of emails like I was talking about. And so we get to the end, we look at this, and so we know how much money is spent. We know that those facilities, we spent $7 million. They're sitting there, basically empty, not doing anything. And we know that's probably going to create a problem. And so we took it to a couple of members of our audit committee just to see the audit committee has two elected city council people on it. And so we took it to one of the members of the audit committee just to see what the reaction was going to be. And she had a conniption fit because she couldn't believe that we spent all that money and did all that work without getting the approval that we weren't supposed to. And so she wanted to and so she knew we had to bring it to the rest of the city council, even though we had not at that point completely finished the rest of the public works audit. And so she said, no, you need to let the mayor and the rest of the city council know that anyway. And so after that, we met with the mayor, and he had the same kind of conniption fit that the audit committee member had. And so we're not completely finished with we just have it. I don't care that you just have a draft report. You need to bring this to the full city council at the next city council meeting. And so, okay. Didn't want to do that, but okay. And so we brought it to the full city council at the next city council meeting, and they had a and they had a conniption fit.
What does it look like when a city councilman and a mayor have a conniption fit? Do they throw stuff? Do they cuss? What's happening?
Yeah, it's I started to say, unfortunately, they only have this happened back in 2012. They only have the last 5 years or so of the videos on the website. Now, I think if you you might try Googling the June 22nd, I think it is, 2012 city council meeting. And if it comes up, Chesapeake City Council meeting, and if it comes up, you'll see what a conniption fit looks like.
Okay.
But anyway,
all right.
June 22nd, 2012. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, they all have this fit, and obviously, no, June 19th. I'm sorry. June 19th. The newspaper story came out on June 22nd. June 19th was the day of the city council presentation. I'm sorry. So anyway, so we do this presentation on June 19th. We know that there's going to be a fairly big media reaction to it because it's we built this thing. We spent $7 million, and the things are just sitting there. And we were just waiting to see what the reaction was going to be. It actually took about 3 days, which is where the June 22nd day comes into play, for the story to come out. But when the story came out, it finally did. When the story came out, it was, of course, the headline. And the headline was, at the beginning of the story, I told you this, jail fail.
Jail fail.
Yeah, jail fail. City has unused facility that costs $7 million, and so that's where the jail fail headline came into the story. And let's see here. I've got the thing in front of me just to kind of go through. Okay, anyway, because we had gotten turned down by both the Board of Corrections and the Virginia General Assembly on multiple different occasions, the city was trying to figure out, the city and the sheriff's office, they were trying to figure out what they were going to use the facility for. And they came up with a number of different things. They were thinking about using it for a weekend day program. They were thinking about using it. They were thinking about converting it to using it as a gym. And because if they were able to use it as a gym, they could convert the gym that they had to bed space, and that would kind of help with the overcrowding.
Hmm.
But they were also talking about they were also talking about using it for storage, because like I said, at that point the sheriff, the city, our city attorney, everybody had kind of given up on the idea of trying to use it for what it was intended
Yeah,
to be used for, which was a jail facility.
sure.
Now, like I said, by this point, the newspaper was in the mix as well, covering this. They were covering it on the front page on basically a daily basis, right?
Sure, sure.
And so, and it wasn't just our newspaper. At one point I saw the San Francisco Chronicle was running stories about it.
No,
It's
no.
like the San Francisco. Why do they care about some jail in
That's
Chesapeake?
right.
Yeah.
Right,
But
right.
anyway, like I said, the newspaper had this columnist, and he decided to write a story about what he thought we should use the facilities for. And this was one of
Oh.
the more interesting part. He said, these are what he came up with. He said, "How about an indoor farmers market? Wouldn't it be nice to pick through tomatoes, corn, and squash without
Yeah,
the sun and the rain beating down?" That
yeah.
was one.
Okay,
His
right.
second thing was, or an overnight homeless shelter. Okay, that was two. Number three, this was the best one. No, wait, better still, a rental hall. Talk about raising some cash. Hold your parties, reunions, and wedding receptions there. Razor wire will keep the uninvited out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was that was kind of the highlight of all of this.
that's hilarious. That's great.
Anyway, like I said, because of all this stuff I told you, they didn't think that they'd ever be able to use it as a jail. But because of all of the publicity, and I'm not always the biggest fan of publicity when it comes to these audits, but in this particular case, it helped. They decided to try one more time with the General Assembly. Now, there were a
Hmm.
number of different hoops that we had to jump through to get to get it approved, first by the Board of Corrections and then by the General Assembly. And we knew that the General Assembly wouldn't approve it unless the Board of Corrections approved it. And so there were like these four steps. We had to have a community study, a planning study, all these other things. And normally those things take months. But what happened, because of all of the publicity and all of the noise, and
Mm.
because of all of this stuff, what wound up happening was we were able to get the community corrections plan, which had been stalled. We were able to get that approved, and
Oh, that's
then we had to do this planning study. And normally that takes 6 months, but they were able to get the planning study done within 6 months. This is all in reaction to what came out in the audit. And then well, actually, the General Assembly had to approve it before the Board of Corrections. And so
okay.
then it went back to the General Assembly. And like I said, the General Assembly had turned down the approval twice in the previous 2 years. And so we weren't sure what was going to happen. But this time, I guess because of all of the noise, we have 140 members in the General Assembly. On the House side, it passed 99 to nothing. One person wasn't there.
Wow.
And then on the Senate side, it passed 39-1.
Wow. Wow.
And
Huh.
then the the Board of Corrections, which also had rejected approving it not once but twice, they approved it on an 8-1 vote. And so finally,
Wow.
This is March of 2013 now. We're finally able to use the facilities as they were intended. But that was on one condition, and this was the one condition. This is where the story actually does get better. Um
This is a good
the,
story anyway.
yeah, but this is where the story gets better at the end. Anyway, as they wouldn't allow us to use it permanently because of what it was made of. They said, okay, you can use it permanently for up to 5 years, but
Mm.
after 5 years, you have to have a permanent jail facility that meets our specifications actually built that you're actually going to use to house inmates. And so, based on that direction from the Board of Corrections, the city allocated some money, and it was a lot more than $7 million. It was like $30 million
Sure.
to actually build a real jail annex.
Okay.
And they actually made it just in time. They had
Wow.
had 5 years from 2013. It was finished in December of 2018.
Gosh.
And but the facility they built was a state-of-the-art facility. It was very nice. You actually wouldn't mind sleeping there. And the best thing is they basically used it as a work training facility. Basically, as people were, people were getting near the end of their
Oh, yeah.
sentences, they would transfer them from the regular jail facility to that facility and provide them with training and other things that they would need to actually be able to transition back into the community. And then at the end of the presentation, when we would do it, we play a video from a guy named James Poole. He actually he's no relation, although we have looked.
Okay. Right. I was like,
Yeah,
about to ask.
he runs a program called Project Find. It stands for Fathers in New Directions. A lot of these, obviously, a lot of these inmates have children. Not all of them are, are in their children's lives and
Right.
taking care of them. Well, one of the things that James did was kind of as in conjunction with this new facility, he would kind of train them on what their responsibilities were as fathers, and so that when they did go back into the facility, they go back into the community rather, they would not only be working citizens but also be better parents. And
Oh,
so,
nice. That's beautiful.
they started using that facility to run a number of those programs like that. And so it was that's why at the end of the title of it, I called it an unlikely success story, because that's the most successful part of it. So.
What has happened? Where is the yurt now? Did it collapse?
Now I think they are actually using it for storage or some other things, and
Okay.
they may actually be, they aren't using it to house inmates anymore, but I think they are using it to actually run some day programs and things like that. So they didn't close it, they didn't collapse it or anything like that. They're still being used. They're just not being used to house inmates overnight anymore.
Gotcha.
So.
Wow. That's a great story, Jay. That's a really good story. It sounds like you did the audit, or you were doing an audit of Public Works.
Mm-hmm.
This became a hot button issue. You presented to the council,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, it was kind of out of your hands.
A lot of it was, yeah. We present the findings. We're not management. We can't implement them, but but because of like I said, I'm not always as you probably know, there are some auditors who actually go out and seek out publicity and use that as, one of the things in
To
their
get
toolbox.
reelected or whatever.
I was never one of those auditors. I generally try to avoid it.
Right.
But, in this particular case, because in large part, because of the national publicity that it wound up generating, it changed a lot of people's minds about what needed to happen, and it wound up fast tracking some of the things that needed to be fast tracked in order for them to actually get this done. And like I said, at the end of the day, the best thing is they came up with a solution that's making a lot of people's lives better. So
yeah, that's beautiful. Good job, Jay.
Thank you, brave listeners, for joining us on this adventure. We appreciate your loyalty. Take a moment to subscribe and share this podcast with all your audit allies. And don't miss out on Yellowbook-CPE's upcoming webinars, because every superhero needs their training. And Yellowbook-CPE offers continuing education that's relevant, convenient, and as thrilling as the fight for justice. Until next time, audit on!